friends!
Hello, friends.
Welcome to Classical Chats. I'm Hayden,
I'm Liz.
and welcome to The Crown Breakdown, where we go through every episode of Season 4 of The Crown. This week, Episode 7, The Hereditary Principle. This is an uncomfortable episode.
As we kind of said in last week's, we kind of have three really depressing episodes right in a row, with the everything with the break-in, and then everything with the hope that maybe Charles and Diana will be fine. No, they won't. And now this is just heartbreaking. Now, I'm going to go ahead and start off with my thoughts.
Yes, go for it.
And when I watched this the first time, because I've watched this 3 times now, as I've said in the last 2 episodes, this is my 3rd time watching this. But the very first time I watched this, interspersed throughout this episode are images and videos from a mental hospital. And my mom is just like, what is going on? Why are we seeing this? And we find out later in the episode why we are seeing this, but it is very off-putting at first.
Yes, this episode, it is very off-putting. So we are still in 1983. Episode 5, we're in 1982. Episode 6, we're in 1983. Episode 7, we are still in 1983. And this episode is Helena Bonham Carter's show.
Yes.
She's Princess
this
Margaret.
Is a very Margaret.
Yes. Margaret has her own episode, which is sort of a running theme each season. They try to give Margaret her own episode. Especially as the royal family increases, they try to keep her relevant.
Absolutely.
But the whole point of this episode, so Margaret is getting older. She has, just like her father, lung surgery. She has to give up smoking. She gives up drinking. And Margaret...
60 cigarettes a day.
Oh, yeah,
Dear
she smokes
God,
like a freight train.
Cigarettes a day.
Yeah, she's been smoking since she was about 15. And at this point, it's the 80s. She's been smoking for decades at this point.
Yeah.
So the episode opens, aside from this interspersed with images of a mental hospital at the time, which we have to give the Crown credit of hiring actual handicapped people to play these parts and not having people who do not have ailments playing them. We have to give credit where credit is due. They hired actors that are true and being their truth. So we have to give them credit where credit is due, which I think in light of everything, especially with Sia, in her controversy, it's very refreshing. Absolutely. It's very refreshing that they went out of their way and found, which isn't hard. It's not hard, but I digress.
No.
So we also see Margaret we see her trying to move on with her life. She's divorced, she's been dating, and we see sort of her final straw with this guy named Dazzle, who is a friend of Dorothy. I love that they use that term. It is a very accurate term.
Yeah.
It's a very PC term to use.
Yes. So for those of you who aren't aware, a friend of Dorothy's refers to a man being gay.
Yes.
And I had to look that up. I had my inclination that I knew what that meant, but I wanted to double check. But it is a term that dates back to World War II.
Yes.
Referring to gay men.
Yes. There's a whole history behind it that we can have a whole episode about. But yes, it is a very serious, and it's a term that has been used in conservative circles to sort of talk, are you a friend of Dorothy's? Oh my God, I know Dorothy. It's a way for gay men or just people in the LGBT community to communicate above the table and not have anybody be the wiser. But yes, so Dazzle is a friend of Dorothy's. That term is because she's meeting also later on in the episode, we see that she's meeting a hairdresser who's also a friend of Dorothy.
He's also a friend of Dorothy.
It's this little fun. It's a fun little aside, but this episode follows Margaret. So Margaret is struggling. Yes. We see her with her health. She has a surgery. It makes the news. She's giving up smoking. She's giving up drinking. And we then have Prince Edward, the youngest son of the Queen and Prince Philip, is now 21. It's 1983.
Yes.
He's 21. And the princess looks at the queen and goes, "This is a new chapter in my life. I've given up smoking. I'm trying to get healthy. I'm trying to focus on this. I don't think dating's for me. I just don't think I'm meant to be dating. Men and me don't mix. Dating and me don't mix.
Men
Ages.
for the first part of my life were leaving me for other women to get married, and now they are leaving me for the priesthood. And
Mm-hmm.
honey, I felt that.
It's and I just appreciate that she's aware of it. She's aware of
Yeah.
it. And she then looks at the queen and goes, "I'm ready to have more duties. I want to we've talked about this before. I give me as much as you can," because she is still an ambassador of state. She still has permission to go
Mhm.
to events and do events on the queen's behalf. Granted, she's at the lower end of the totem pole, but she still has permission to do so. Parliament and the
Yeah.
Privy Council still acknowledge her. Well, the next
Not with
day she
Edward turning 21.
yeah, now Edward is 21. He is legally an adult, especially by
Yes.
both ends, both in America and in England. He is not only 18, he's
Yeah.
21. He is
He's
very much
21.
legally an adult. And the queen then goes and can we talk about how all of her staff have the shitty job of delivering the awful news?
Yeah. Yeah. Like,
Every season,
seriously.
her staff have to deliver the awful news. And it's sort of like, can you not just talk about it? But yeah, God bless
Yeah.
those help. But Prince Edward is now 21, and based off of the Regency Act of 1937, the group of people that can fill in for whomever is sovereign is limited to 6. Edward
Yeah.
is now 21. He now boop, is in that list. Someone has
He
to
is now
go.
number 6.
He's now number 6. Margaret, you have to go. And
Yeah.
she talk about her breakdown.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, before we talk about our breakdown, I have to highlight one of my favorite parts of the episode, which is actually Edward's 21st birthday party.
Oh, it seems
And
rad.
specifically I have to mention Philip's speech. And it's just like it's a very nice kind of endearing speech, but at the end he's just like, and happy birthday to what's your name again? And it's just fun.
It is.
It's just like a, I mean, obviously Philip and Elizabeth have 4 children. He's the youngest. He Anne is obviously Philip's favorite. We've established this in episode 2 or 3, I believe. Episode 3, the favorite, yes. But and then Charles is obviously the next in line to be king. And then it's just like, and then we got another 2. And it's just like, but that's just a fun little scene. And I really love the speech. And it's just like, happy birthday. What's your name again?
Mhm.
Um,
And it's
but
fun to
it's just,
it's fun to see them interact as a family. That's one thing I
yes,
really
yes.
it's fun to just see them having fun.
Yeah.
So yes, but the scene
This
with the
was the
queen.
lightness to the episode.
Yeah, that was the only fun part. The only fun part.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's just like this meeting between Margaret and Elizabeth. I asked you for one thing, and that was to give me work. And now you are literally taking away the only thing that I had that made me happy. And she's quit smoking because of everything with her lungs. Her best friend Dazzle is leaving her to go into the priesthood, which I'm happy that you will never do that to me. I know
No,
you will never do
no, I
that
will
to
never
me.
do that to you. No. No, 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 no,
But
no. I'm not cut out for that type of work. I'm not cut out for it.
there are
Not
there
cut
are
out
other
for it.
stories that we can tell with that. But she is just crushed and devastated. And she in turn then, I'm kind of skipping ahead a little bit, but she ends up having a lunch with Charles,
Mm-hmm.
who tells her that he is now in therapy. He's seeing someone. It's just like, we already know
No,
that. We're well aware that you're
we
seeing.
already. And he's
No,
like, no, no, not
no.
that. He basically like, first off, screw you. No, not that kind of seeing someone. But yeah. So there's this uncomfortable conversation that the Queen and Princess Margaret have, where she's taking away the last thing, and the Queen goes, "You have your
Yeah.
charities, you have your friends," and she goes, "No one wants me. This was the last thing. You're taking away the
Yeah.
literal last thing that I had to keep me relevant." And then she flees and goes to her island of Mystique, which
Yes.
this island is rad. It looks rad. The house on
Yes.
the property was for sale, I think, 3 years ago. Because her kids still had it. It got passed down, but then they couldn't afford
Yeah.
it anymore, so they sold it. Um, but yeah,
We will
she
get our
flees.
hands on it one day.
Oh, I would love to go there. But she flees and she sees her main lady in waiting, Lady Anne Glenconnor, or also known as Baroness Glenconnor. She was the daughter of an earl, and she married a baron, and she has a book called, My Life in the Shadow of the Crown, which I want to read because it seems rad. But she goes down there and she's basically, if not at the edge, she is teetering, about to fall over the edge. She's at her wit's end. And Charles
Yeah.
goes to see her, especially after the tour, and he then says, "Hi, I'm seeing someone to work on my mental health."
Yes. I suggest you do the same.
Mm-hmm.
Basically.
And this is where you see
And
her old world of, "I'm fine. I'm fine. I don't need to talk
yeah.
about it. I'm fine." And he goes, "No, you need to talk to someone."
Yeah. It's like, seriously. But this is then when we get Margaret going to a therapist, and she's talking about her problems and everything, but the therapist brings up, well, what about your family and this genetic link to all of these mental health issues? And it's just like, what are you talking about? And it's just like, well, you have 5 family members who are hidden away because of, we find out later that it's due to severe developmental disorders, but it's just like, what are you talking about? And so she goes to the Queen, and it's just like, here are
What
the
is
receipts,
this?
and then what is this? And then the Queen's just like, oh, no, look, they
They're
died this year and this year, they're dead. And
But also, can we
it's,
talk about how that therapist broke ethic codes? Like this
oh,
fictitious.
absolutely,
Yeah,
that is
she
not
broke
legal at
ethic
all.
codes. Oh my god! What are the things you learn as a teacher with FERPA? You cannot talk about this, and yet this therapist
That
talks about it.
that is a
Therapist,
clear HIPAA violation.
that is a HIPAA
That is a
violation.
clear HIPAA violation.
That therapist should be fired. This fictitious therapist should be fired. And then later on, they still talk about it. This fictitious therapist should be fired. You do not talk about this. Even if you know, you do not talk about this. You do not bring it up. But yes, Margaret goes, "Hi, I'm struggling." And she goes, "Oh, what about the other people?" And this brings up an uncomfortable part of the royal family's history. And
Yes.
this is very true. So we all know the madness of Henry VIII. And,
Yes.
the madness of Henry VIII, especially after he fell off his horse and got that wound that never healed. But also directly relating to the current bloodline. So you have to go back a couple branches in the family tree, which they bring up. So they talk about George III being crazy. And George III, they've actually gone back through. Granted, they don't have any DNA, so they can't actually concretely process this, but based off notes and writing and everything, they've been able to diagnose, and George III had something wrong with him. He actually had some type of disorder that came up later in life that began to deteriorate his brain. Like, it's not Alzheimer's, it's not dementia, it's something completely out in left field. George III had something. They also talk about, even closer to the current bloodline, they talk about Prince John. Now, Prince John, 90% of people do not know about Prince John. Prince John was the youngest son, if my memory is correct, Prince John is the youngest son of George V and Queen Mary. And Prince John had severe epilepsy
Mm.
in another, not necessarily a developmental disorder, if my memory is correct, but
Yeah.
the big thing is he had epilepsy. And around the age of like 6, 7,
Mm.
he was put in a mental institution. And around the age of 14, he passed away. He was locked away.
Yeah.
And this also brings up a couple other things about purity of royal bloodline and genetics and the sense of duty
Incest.
and personal image, and yes, incest, because it brings up a lot of about image and what the public sees. And
Yeah.
yeah, incest is within, it's up until the late 19th, early 20th century, royal families were very commonly incest. In fact, the Russian royal family were known, and hemophilia is, considered the royal disease, but it's passed down through women. And
Yeah.
hemophilia is very common, especially also if you think of other disorders. There's also the Habsburg chin, where their chin stuck out really far and their face was all deformed because of the incest and the close breeding. But you want to present, the Queen Mother talks about this. This is also strike 2 for the Queen Mother. This episode does not do her justice.
No.
But
No.
to get back on track of the actual plot of this episode, Princess Margaret finds out through her therapist that there are 5 members of the royal family, extended royal family through the Bose-Lion line, through the Queen
Yes.
Mother's line, directly through the
Yes.
Queen Mother and her family. That there are 5 members that through mental and developmental disabilities that are outside their control, it's who they are, they were locked away. And she tells the Queen, and she goes, what are you talking about? They're dead. And she goes, no, they're not. No, they're not. And they pull out a book and goes, look, here are their names.
They're dead.
They are dead. Move on. They died in the 60s. And Princess Margaret's like, this doesn't sit right with me. So she gets Dazzle, which,
Yes.
by the way, I think Princess Margaret and I are equally bad drivers. We're equally bad drivers. I never claimed to be a good driver. I can get to point A to point B, depending on how well. That's not the point. I can get there, but
The sad thing is that I'm the better driver, and I didn't get my license until I was 21, 22.
I got my license at 17, and I passed. And I also, out of my friend group, I was the only one to pass it the first time.
Which is concerning.
Yeah, I
to
passed
me.
it the first time. Hey, you know what? I'm only meant to drive myself. I'm only meant to drive myself, and that's perfectly fine.
Obviously.
But she goes to this. She finds out where they were held, where they were housed, and she goes with Dazzle. Dazzle comes back. Haha! Dazzle comes back, and they go. And Princess Margaret goes, "You have to go in. I can't go in. I'm too high profile. I can't go in. You have to go in." And he comes back going, yeah, no, they're alive. All 5 of them are very much alive. Your family's lying to you. And she goes to Scotland, where she goes to Castle May. Castle May is the Scottish residence of the Queen Mother, which is still around. You can visit it. Not right now, but you can visit it. You can see it. But she goes to Castle May, and she looks at her mom and goes, what the hell is up with this family? Why are they locked away and forgotten about? And the Queen Mother goes, well, the abdication, and Margaret snaps.
No. Not the abdication. This is family. We don't ignore them. This is not because of the abdication. This is because of something else.
Why are they declared dead? They're alive. This is cruel. This is inhumane. Yeah. And then she makes the point. Why is it that anybody that does not fit this mold, if they have anything irregular, whether minor or small, they're thrown away. They're forgotten. They're labeled a problem. They're labeled this and that and that. Why is this family so ruthless? I have, Princess Margaret, I have been at the end of this ruthlessness. Why does this keep happening? And the Queen Mother goes, well, the abdication. She goes, that is not an excuse anymore. You cannot keep hiding behind the abdication. That is not an excuse anymore. And then they have an argument, and Queen Mother stands there, gobsmacked, jaw on the floor. Princess Margaret walks away. Jump cut. It's later that night. Queen Mother is changed, glamorous. Princess Margaret's still in her clothes, and she goes, "Can we talk?" And she goes, "I understand your feelings, I understand your thoughts, but let me explain my side, and hopefully you can understand the full picture." And she goes, "The abdication is still to blame because of how much it changed things. Everything in this family changed. I was the wife of the Duke of York and was just over here off to the side doing my own thing. He left, and now my family, my blood family, went from being minor Scottish aristocrats to a direct bloodline to the crown.
Yes.
And we thought of the family's image. We thought of this, we thought of that, and we thought that if the press and the public were to know, they would doubt the legitimacy of your father, they would doubt the legitimacy of your sister, they would doubt the crown. Everything already is hanging very precariously and could teeter at any moment. We made a decision to keep everything safe."
Yeah.
And it's still bullshit.
Uh,
Still bullshit.
it is. It is still very much so. And so one of the things that needs to kind of then be said is, I don't know if it was necessarily the Queen Mother that reveals this or if it's the therapist, but the gene and everything that cause these severe developmental disorders are not blood linked to the Queen.
It's
It
through
is.
it's through your Aunt Vanilla, which also her name Vanilla. Can we talk about that?
That's a choice.
That was a choice.
So there is, between the Queen and these cousins, there is the direct biological link, the direct biological line does not cross over at all. They are completely separate in terms of that it's separated.
Yes.
But at the same time, because it is something genetic, and obviously not everybody 100% understands genetics, especially it's the 80s. We're not to the point of genetic testing and everything that we are in 2020 now. But it's taboo. It's difficult to talk about, and does that mean that they should have been marked as dead and hidden away for years and years and years? God, no. But can there be a little bit of understanding to say maybe we hide this away? No, we shouldn't, but I can understand why they did.
And I can understand too, because any royal abdicating, one of the biggest things about a monarchy and a sovereign is that this family line, you are directly appointed by God. You are this vessel between the two. That is the big thing. So with someone abdicating, it's in some ways looking for people that have a deeper faith than I do. And monarchy itself is looking at the center pillar of a monarchy and going, no. And it's some ways looking at the face of God and going, no. And that's why it was such a big deal in its time that you're looking, the world was more conservative then, and whereas religion was taken more at face value. And so I understand what the Queen Mother was saying. Do I agree with it? No. And one thing I do appreciate about Princess Margaret's therapist is she's making a clear line. She's going, these are genetic. Your 5 cousins, it's who they are. They have these developmental disabilities, which, granted, those terms that the Queen Mother were spouting made me uncomfortable. Oh God. Those were
very, very not politically correct in any terms.
No. Oh my God. Those were so uncomfortable that I'm not even going to say them. They were, no.
We won't.
They were so uncomfortable. And, I like that the therapist made the delineation. Those are genetic. They had no say. You are struggling in a different way. You are over here in a different. It's a nice comment about mental health, because at the time, mental health still had this stigma. And there's
Absolutely.
sort of, granted, this episode is uncomfortable and slightly controversial in its dated terms, but granted, it is set in the
Hmm.
80s when they didn't know as much. And
Yeah,
there was still this stigma about mental health. So I like that they took time to talk about it. But
absolutely.
the flip side, it's still uncomfortable. They still locked those women
Yeah,
away. They locked them away,
absolutely.
and it's par for the course in the sense that royal families will do whatever they can to maintain their image, to make sure
Yeah,
that the smoke and mirrors is going. But
yeah.
one thing you and I both agree with, this episode could have been a little shorter.
It could have. It could
There
have.
were a lot of vignettes this episode, not necessarily
Hmm.
montages, vignettes of Margaret being miserable, which
Yeah,
we know. And
we
also in
get.
my book,
We get.
somewhere up there in the background on this top shelf, I have the book 99 Glimpses of Princess Margaret, and it talks about it.
Yeah, yeah,
Much like how short this episode is, this episode could
yeah.
have been shorter. It's the main punchline was stretched out.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
I did appreciate, there's also a final sort of, the episode wraps after all this contemplativeness with Margaret and her going here, her going there, and between
Hmm.
Kensington Palace and Mystique, and she's thinking and being really retrospective and sitting at the bottom of a pool and thinking,
Yeah.
which that's actually when Charles was, that's earlier in the episode, but besides that,
Yeah.
she then has one last meeting with Dazzle. And she is then going, is what it is. I have this medication. She's recommended exercise, stop smoking, stop drinking. And she
Hmm.
feels I can get on track to getting where I need to be. And
Yeah.
Dazzle is essentially going, well, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? And they sort of talk about how, this family's been so ruthless to her and other members,
Yeah.
but yet she still stays. And he points out,
Yeah.
why don't you leave? Join the Catholic Church. It did this whole great for me. You should join it too.
Yeah.
And she looks at him and snaps and goes, this is my duty. This is my purpose. I am the sister of the queen, daughter of a king emperor. I am at the center of this. I will have protection. I will have this. I will have that. And she dismisses him, but then also has very poignant, in your own free time, will you pray for me?
Yeah.
And the episode kind of just, it leaves you unset. Of course, it mentions, here are those, here's how they were hit, and brings in their
Catherine and Narissa.
brings in their
Catherine
real
and Narissa.
photos, the real photos to
Yeah.
add light that this is based on very real people.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm just going to add really quick. Narissa lived from February 18th of 1919 to January 22nd of 1986. And Catherine lived from July 4th of 1926 up until February 23rd of 2014,
Damn, good for
which
her.
was only 6
Good,
years ago.
good
So
for her.
it's like
She had good innings. Good for her.
she
Even if it
she
was miserable
was
for her, that doesn't sound
yeah,
like a good life. But she had a long one.
yeah.
I've read a
But
little bit about the
it's
Boseline family. The Boseline family is
interesting.
interesting. It's interesting to say the least. We could have a whole series of episodes about the Boseline family. They're
Yeah.
between bankruptcy and poor and this and that. There's a whole bunch of stuff about the Boseline family. But final thoughts of this episode.
God, it's depressing. God, do all of our families have hidden skeletons in our closets? And mental health is important.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about it. If you need help, seek it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's nice to see that, I mean, even though we despise Charles, I was seeking help elsewhere. We know, not like that, but
That was like the one comic beat. Aside from the party, that was fun.
yeah,
That was the one comic beat where he's like, not
yeah,
that, no. And he kind of like gets defensive. It's like, no, I've started seeing
yeah, and it's yeah, and I mean, the Margaret episodes, the Margaret centric episodes, I feel really get a chance for Helena Bonham Carter in the last two seasons to really flex and show what she's capable of. But most of the time, we get to just see her make her snarky remarks and have some fun lines, have that fun little pillow that says,
It's not easy
it's
being a
tough being a
princess.
princess. It's not easy being a princess. But it really shed some light into who she is, and as hard and tough and depressing of an episode as it was an important episode to have, and it did shed light on some really really dark skeletons in the royal family's closet.
Yeah, and this isn't the first time that that the Crown has talked about skeletons in the closet, i.e.,
Yeah.
season 2, when we really learn how affiliated the Duke of Windsor was with the Third Reich
With
and Hitler.
Nazis.
So the royal family has a lot of skeletons in their closet, both during this current house and previous ones.
Yeah.
But it's par for the course because they have to
Yeah.
keep the legitimacy of the throne. But I am happy that Helena Bonham Carter got to have her
Flex.
episode. I really enjoy
Yeah.
Helena Bonham Carter as an actress. I think I was sort of waiting
Yeah.
for her to become Bellatrix, though, for her to go on, I killed Sirius Black, and like I was sort of waiting for her to undo that bun and like let her hair go.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, this episode, series of really bleak episodes, and you can tell that with the color story.
Yeah.
Everything's real muted. Everything's very
Absolutely.
pastel
Absolutely.
and gray. But yeah,
Yeah.
the hereditary principle. Not a
Sad
fun
episode, but
Mhm.
definitely tells a lot of information. So
Mhm.
okay, I think we did the thing.
We did the thing. We did it.
We
So
did the thing.
if you enjoyed hanging out with us, spending time with us, doing talking about the Crown, down below, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell notification, leave a comment down below. Let us know how we're doing. We upload every Tuesday at some point in Tuesday. If you enjoy spending even more time with us, we have our podcast, Classical Chats with Hayden and Liz. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcast, on Anchor. You linked down below are all of our social medias. We are on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Also, our emails linked down below. Have a funny story, have a performance fail, just have a general comical story when you were in band at any point, or choir, orchestra, theater, opera, wherever. We want to know. We want to share it. All those links
Yep.
are down below. And with that, have a good rest of your day and
Stay royal. Bye.
bye.